I'm partway through setting up, or the final stages of setting up distant foreign fields. I gotta tell you something. Under these good lights that I have here, I'm able to read the little counters and see. I haven't really looked at the designations of them, but I can see the strength point indicators pretty well. Some of them do have that 1 point indicator. I'm trying to see if I have one kicking around. There's one. That little, looks like a little plant with a ring around it. I'm able to see them just fine under the good lighting. I was trying to see them in my bedroom where I really don't have good lighting at all. I also am seeing the value of this English Expeditionary Corps in Egypt. It's able to hold supplies. One of the things I have to do for the setup is I have to allocate supply points equal to the national morale to each country. Except the Brits. The Brits actually get significantly less. They get like, I don't know what it was, 50 or 60 points, something like that, instead of whatever they're actually worth, which is like 160. But they don't have a lot of troops on the board at the beginning, so they don't really need it. This can be tricky. And I have to set up the neutrals too. So like the Italians are set up here. I don't see any Austrians on the Italian front, which feels weird because historically I think the Austrians kept a garrison there. Certainly games like La Grande Guerre, actually every other strategic game I have puts an army there, at least one, to kind of watch the Italians and make sure that they don't attack. That's going to be kind of a danger in terms, because Italy comes in relatively early. They should come in 15, I think. So that's kind of risky. On the other hand, the Ottomans have like a huge force here, much larger than I expected. I'm not sure, because when I think about, like I'm thinking about a game like World War I, the old SPI game, where they have just a couple of counters, as do most of the other miners, but that doesn't take into account what they have on these other sectors. But compared to what they have in the other sectors, they actually have a fairly large army here, a fairly large army here in the Caucasus. So, yeah, that's pretty impressive. And things are beginning to look like a real game now, you know? Like the French have their lines set up, the Russians are covering everything. All the hexes are more or less covered, at least by the major powers. The minor powers have a harder time. I mean, look at Romania, a scattering of troops. It's almost like, wow, do you really want to bring them in? Because they can't guard their border with what they start with. Now, they may have additional troops when they actually come in. I'm not sure, because they may be getting reinforcements. It may come down to when their card is drawn, whether or not they get reinforcements before that. But yeah, Romania looks particularly weak. Greece is weak, but that's fine. Greece is kind of out of things, and you're expected to bring the Brits in there or whatever. Anyway, I thought I'd give you a glimpse partway through and note that I have been able to deal with the visuals on the components a lot better than I thought I was going to. All right, I think we're pretty much set up. Oh, maybe not. I got my airplanes for the Germans. They don't matter. You can see the weight of the German setup for the Schlieffen plan. I had a lot of optional placements for the Germans. I decided to fill in the south rather than put a whole bunch of reserves to back up the Schlieffen. I don't know if that's wise or not, but I'm terrified of Plan 17 succeeding, you know? So it's like, yeah, I want to make sure I got 2 units per hex there. That's a pretty mighty thing, ready to go into Luxembourg and Belgium. There were a couple of things that I found. One is the German 6th Bavarian Reserve Division was mentioned in the setup here as being part of the Western Front map. Oh, maybe not. No, not there. Here in the fourth pool. It's listed in the fourth pool. The counter and the compendium of units, wherever the Germans start, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. Both note it as coming in on turn 314, where it would enter the force pool. This is something where I'm going with, well, it's on the majority, it's on the counter, you know. I'm assuming it's a mistake here. It's not the kind of thing that's going to make a huge difference, but it does give me less production than I would normally have. There are supplies under all the headquarters. I already mentioned that that's kind of why this exists. I've eaten up most of the supply pool of the big guys. By the way, you see these kind of sparkles maybe in here. That's because the backs of all these counters are kind of sparkly. It's really weird. Like I said, the British say they're tan. They're kind of this gold color, but especially on the back. You can see this, I guess you could argue this is tan, but it has a little bit of sparkle in it. But look at that. I mean, it's like a metallic paint on there. There's a couple things I still have to set up. I have to set up the monthly goals according to whether or not they should be on failed to begin with or succeeded. Because like somebody who's not losing anything, if that's their goal, they've already succeeded, but they can fail. The weather markers, I had an extra weather marker. I see what it's for. The sun map has its own weather. I did not expect that. I got the Western Front weather here. No, I got the Western Front there. Yeah, I've got an extra weather counter. I don't know where that's supposed to go. There's a bunch of counters. I talked about the monthly goal, the big pushes, the reinforcement markers. When you buy reinforcements ahead of time, the generics or whatever. I don't remember what else. There was something else that kind of hit me. I still haven't found that counter, but it's the only thing I'm missing. I did find that I had a unit of cav assigned over in East Prussia that belonged with like the 4th Army here and vice versa, which really confused me when I saw it, because it was like, you know, something that I'm like, I may have other mistakes of that nature on there. I'm still really concerned that there are no Austrians on the Italian front to start with. It means that you can't really tinker with the game and try to put an Italian reserve, you know, like if you wanted to make Italy come in at different times or whatever. This feels like a game that I'd want to tinker with. I'm a little worried about how weak the German position is in the east. One of the factors that I noticed, and I don't know how this is gonna work out, but most of these games make like the German units significantly better than everything else, and maybe they make some other units significantly worse. Here, it's kind of based on the starting strength points on units. Yeah. There's some units that have a maximum strength of 2. Russia has some of them. There's a few of them kicking around everywhere. Austria has a few. But by and large, the regulars across the board, the Germans have no real advantage. And there's nothing else baked in the rules that I see as an advantage. They do have an economic advantage in that they're a powerful nation. They can keep putting out more troops, etc. But in most of these games, I'm able to rely on, the German units are like 50% better or twice as good as what they're facing, in terms of like the French or whatever. That is not the case in this game. They are equivalent. There's not a lot of chromey rules, like, you don't have the red pants and stuff like that baked into here, the French artillery bonuses. It's not going into the kind of detail that Le Grand Guerre goes into on those kind of issues. And that's one of the big things. I think this focuses a little bit more on the operational side than Le Grand Guerre does. And the question is, will I like it, even though it's at a slightly higher level, will I like it on the operational level as much or more than I like Der Weltkrieg? Because it's got the same kind of solution, which is, let's have, maps for each front, and then have some kind of grand campaign to link them together. This is more organic. The whole game's put together at once with that in mind, whereas Der Weltkrieg, they had to basically, slowly convince the designer into, come on, we really want a grand campaign, and he put something together. The grand campaign for this doesn't feel that rich, not in the sense that, again, I'm always going to look to Le Grand Guerre, and that's the thing. This game is not going to replace Le Grand Guerre for me. And if I want to just do an operational, I'm going to go, I guess, still not convinced yet, but the 1914 stuff, of course, that's just 1 year, This can allow you to handle, like Der Weltkrieg, the entire war operationally on, a given front or whatever. I just wasn't that convinced by Der Weltkrieg. I felt like it was good, but it didn't hit me that hard, even though, it did cover a whole front in, for the whole war, which makes me happier than something like 1914 in concept. So that's really where this is going to come. Now, I'm not going to buy into Der Weltkrieg anyway, so that's not that big a deal. I got this not at some stupid price. I'm not sure if it sells at stupid prices. It's really, there's 3 plays on the thing, on BGG. There's more ratings than plays, so whatever. But, and I can understand that. People want to record the rating. That means something. Their personal plays, that's really for their own information. I'm just babbling because, I'm excited that I got it all set up. But I'm not sure I want to start quite yet. It is rather late. It's, mid-dark Tuesday morning, and I should probably get some more sleep fairly soon if I want to go shopping tomorrow. And it's supposed to rain. It's raining right now, but it's supposed to rain the day on Wednesday. So it would behoove me to go shopping today. One of the things that people, and kind of tying into that, this isn't going to replace Le Grand Guerre for me. And I know that. I can already tell. It's just not going to do it. It might, and it's not going to replace Le Grand Guerre Light, because I don't think this is much lighter. And if anything, I think the, it's more operational. It blows things up a little bit more. For me, that is like the balance of powers. If I want to play a lighter version of Le Grand Guerre, it's not going to replace the light. It's obviously not going to be in the really light end of things. The World War I, the First World War over there, which I think I liked. The lamps go out, whatever. Those kind of games where it handles the whole war on a strategic level, but relatively, single setting type games. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm gonna find a place for this. And if I was a if I had normal like desires and whatnot, I would just say, you know what, this is superseded across the board. I probably shouldn't be playing it. I shouldn't know, picking it up and looking at it, that's fine. But I don't know that it takes, it's got any chance of taking the place of anything. That doesn't mean I won't play it, because I play everything. But some people are like, oh, you're very excited to play it. I'm really not. I'm excited to see how it works and what it does, but it's not going to replace anything that I really do like. And so it probably means it's a single play thing no matter what. And, I'm not somebody who's going to sell games, but if I was, I'd probably get rid of it after one play and kind of think, that was weird. But yeah, I mean, there's a certain level. I know I'm embarking on something big, and that's always kind of exciting in its own way. Let me get those planes out, fix the couple of markers over there. Maybe I'll start, maybe I won't. It's done. But there was one piece of the rules that irked me, which was the U.S. troops setting up in the Sen region. They actually don't. That's specified in the Grand Campaign scenario. It says don't set them up there. I don't know, how many scenarios it says that, but it's like, it's in the setup, and then it's like, don't set them up there until the U.S. Joins the war. I think the way it's set up in the rules is so that when they do show up, some of the forces are more advanced than their normal setup phase. That could maybe be fixed by, having a unit come in a turn early or something. I don't know. I really don't know why they did it that way. But at least I don't have some stupid U.S. unit up there with a headquarters and a ridiculous amount of supplies sitting on it that can't be attacked and nothing can happen to it or anything, but it's just there. I find it kind of odd that Plan 17, now Plan 17's lousy, right? Has special rules that require it, but Schlieffen does not. There's nothing that makes me, as the Germans, try to adhere to that. So now the setup somewhat does, because all my forces up here, what am I going to do? Also, there's no options for not, Belgium is in the war. Even though I haven't crossed the borders or whatnot. And this is kind of weird because, if I recall correctly, Offensive à outrance starts with you having already, as the Germans, violated Belgium's neutrality, taken Luxembourg over. I know that La Grande Guerre does. And I feel like it's kind of cool that it doesn't, but there's no options here. I have to do that stuff. All right, I'm breaking for a bit, and then I have to think about what I'm doing. Oh, also, I did find out when I started setting up the Germans, their counters are very hard to read. I had real trouble under the lighting, the good lighting that I have here, distinguishing which units. And the thing is, they were the first ones I sorted, which gave me kind of that impression. And so... but I found, most of the other countries are a lighter print, and I can see that dark line on it, but that thin little dark line on these units, now, it should be on every unit. And you can kind of see it there, but I found on some of them it was very hard to see. And, I'm zooming in, right? I especially found it hard, I couldn't tell necessarily if it was there or on the back side, or on the other counter. This would be much worse if I didn't have counters glued together. I hope I find that counter. It really stresses me out. I don't think I will, but really stresses me out. Anyway, breaky time. Bugger all. I'm too awake not to get started. Oh, I don't like this. I know this is gonna fuck up my my day, week, whatever. But yeah, all right. So we are on. Over here is the prequel days, or turns. So we're on week 1 of August 1914. If I recall correctly, that's only the west front, which helps a little bit. Let's find the sequence of play. Hey, we have a whole big one here. It's not the seasonal turn. The seasonal turn, do we have one? We have one here for the, for the late summer 1914. Okay. Yeah, that's basically going to be this. No, I'm not sure. It looks like we're supposed to have one there. A seasonal turn on the west front? That doesn't even make sense. Because I gotta look to see what's up with that. Because you get your whole national points on a seasonal turn. So I don't know what that's intending to be here. I mean, for France and Britain, it's fine. For Germany, does it really make sense that they get their whole points, but only on the West Front? Let me see. That's the case. And it kind of makes sense because I'm getting four turns. Then we hit a seasonal turn. This guy's only gotten one turn on all the other fronts, which is the Balkan and East at this point. And then I guess we skip the autumn seasonal turn and move into the autumn regular. Well, so September. So what's really weird is actually September comes here, and then we'd have the autumn. I think we have the autumn seasonal turn too. Interesting. Again, for Britain and France and Belgium, it makes sense. For Germany, I'm getting my full production in the West. There are a couple of things that other games generally give you some kind of special rule for as well. For example, the shift to support, shifting Hindenburg into command and getting... although we don't have individual leaders in this. That's another thing I love about La Grande Guerre. But shifting a couple of units over, a couple of corps really, over into East Prussia for the Tannenberg situation. And then also shifting from the Austrian Second Army to help cover because there's a hell of a hole right here. I put a couple of German units down there on key locations. I'm pretty much assuming the Russians can't advance that much. But, man, it's scary looking. The sequence of play tells me the first thing is the weather phase. I only have the West Front. Let's see. I am in summer. It is possible it could be not perfect weather. There's nothing that seems to prevent that. And it's raining. That doesn't sound good. That sounds horrible. Very interesting. So that's going to be air units can't move. Land units in supply have half movement allowance. Artillery effectiveness is reduced. Tanks can't be used in combat. Attacking land units have their attack roll reduced. See, this is the right way to do it. Not to call it a DRM, right? But like, there's no consistency in the game. And I understand they don't want to put these many words. And trenches with only one strength point cannot be taken as casualties. Well, this is going to get in the way of certainly the Schlieffen plan. It's not going to make Plan 17 any better either. They have to launch like multiple big pushes. Okay, well, there's that. Now we make a roll for initiative. Now, let me see the initiative here. This is for the supply phase. Well, that's interesting. I don't know where. I feel like it should tell me here that I have to roll for initiative. Higher die roll moves first. Yeah, so I'm just going to go odd even. French will be odd. Okay, so the Germans have to move their supplies first. Now, I don't think I want to move anything, but I could shift my headquarters if I don't like the positioning here. And there's no cost, and it doesn't affect the offensive phase and whatnot. But I've got everything set up where I want it, so we don't need to do anything there. And likewise, see, for the French, this is different. First of all, the Brits might want to move their headquarters forward a little bit. Not very far. That would be dangerous. But the French also have an extra. They have the Fifth Army. No, not the Fifth Army there. They have these. I thought I had another army. God, these upside down counters are pissing me off. Yeah, Fifth Army is back here. It could actually move into Belgium. But then I have to think really hard about how far forward I want to jump. And I don't know. I think I'll hold off with them. The Brits, there's a lot of room. How far are the Germans going to get? You know, I can move the Fifth Army a couple of hexes forward. Things are kind of tightly packed in here. There's a lot of information. For example, the terrain effects chart. It's tiny. Kind of wish it was on the map somewhere, but it's not. But yeah, I got to look up and see, yeah, rivers don't cost me anything to cross. I'm not interested. Reconnaissance doesn't do shit for me. Yeah, I might not know how many strength points a stack has by 1 or 2 points or something. But I don't feel like that knowledge is that important. And there is, I believe, a casualty check when you do a recon. Maybe there's not. There certainly is for bombing and other stuff. Yeah, I don't think there is for recon. But I just don't feel like recon's worth it, even though if I can get it for free. I just does not. And I can do it during the offensive phase if I wish. The other thing is it eats supply. And I'm just not willing to spend resources. I've got my planes too far forward, probably. I probably should have them hiding somewhere. Because I see the recon planes as their main use is to take casualties. Send them in a run, and when I get the option to choose the casualties myself, which is most of the time, I'll just take a recon and never build it. They're too expensive to build, and I just don't see them as at all valuable in this game. They might be useful, and this actually makes some sense, is fly over a suspected, because this is something you don't necessarily know. Fly over a suspected supply hub and do a recon there. that allows you to count how much supplies there are there. And then that can inform whether or not you want to like launch a bombing raid on that or something. I think for the most part, everything else, the strength points of units and everything, it's just not that big a deal. You might be vaguely curious if there's something on top that's not, like if there's a unit on top, 50% of the units, not necessarily 50% of the strength, but sure, a 4-point unit could be hiding a 1-point unit under it. But you have a pretty good idea of what the strength is. And again, it's not an odds-based system, so getting exact strengths isn't that important. I prefer that. I don't like pure odds-based systems in general. But it would be helpful if I have bombers to know, hey, there's a big depot there. Like, just to make sure it's there, right? Is it worth the third of a supply point? Maybe not, but I don't know. Anyway, that's going to put us to the main part, which is the offensive phase. Let me make sure that there's nothing funky about that in terms of the initiative. I think it's just a die roll again. 2 alliances roll, higher die roll determines who gets the initiative. Ooh. Oh boy. So, this is potentially a big deal. Because if I could get up to where the English were, and I'm not going to be able to with the rain and everything, I'm just not going to be able to, period. But if I could get up to where the English have run ahead of their forces with their headquarters, that would be something that I could force a painful situation on them. I think I'm going to hand the initiative over to the French, but they don't have to do any, or to the Entente, but they don't have to do anything. They can just kind of pass, because they know the Germans have to do something. I have these monthly goals in place. The French and British don't want to lose a city, and they don't want to lose a division. That's their goal. Good luck with that. Whereas the other countries want to take a city or kill a division. Austria may have difficulty on that side. But they've got, that's per month. Wow. Yeah, that could be painful. But yeah, I have to decide now, do the French want to go first? Now, they're going to have that Plan 17 in mind and have to do it, which means bad stuff could conceivably happen to me if I pass here. So I may need to activate something. Now, I want to keep my page and flip over to the national capabilities. And I'm sure I read this to you recently, but I want to see what the French Plan 17. During the August 1914, the French must conduct several big push offensives. They must conduct 2, each lasting at least 2 turns anywhere south of Luxembourg. They also have to conduct at least one turn. I don't have to do it this turn. I could wait for the weather to get better. This seems like a horrible turn to launch my attacks. So, I'm going to pass. Now, the Germans didn't pass. They gave the French the initiative. I'm going to pass, and that's going to put the offensive phase back on the Germans. Now, if the Germans want to advance, and they obviously need to, they have to at least activate one of their forces. So, put a couple of dice here. Now it says declaration of front offensive. It makes it sound like I do a map at a time and not what I've been talking about. But I'm not sure that's really the case. You may conduct multiple front offensives on the same map. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I probably want to do something. I need to clear Liège. That's my big blocker here. The French could have rushed into Luxembourg, for example. Maybe tightened their line if they had taken the initiative. I mean, it may have been a mistake to give the French the initiative. I made up for that mistake by passing, so I don't know. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so I definitely want to do something here. My movement rate is 8. The terrain, some of it is roughs, which are normal movement. Some of it are higher than rough. Heights are 2 movement points. So if I go into this shit, I have to pay 2 movement points per hex. Forests, I think, are 2, because they're pretty nasty. This is so hard. Because, like, whatever I do is going to cost me piles of supply. And I'm, like, trying to balance it out. Okay, let's put it this way. First Army is kind of bottled up. I can't make it through the Netherlands. I have to squeeze through here. So I feel like they pretty much have to take Liège. Now, I'm not going to activate all the units of the First Army. And I know I'm really going into this in detail because I'm trying to grasp what I want to do. I'm not going to be moving all my units. Now, what do you do during the offensive? An assault, I believe I'm allowed to move before I attack. Maybe not. I'm going to have to look that up. I thought I could move before I attack. Like, for most of the game, we're going to be just in contact with each other unless somebody decides to pull back like the Germans did in, was it 16, 17? I don't know. But if we're not able to attack, then what we want to do is actually wait until non-combat movement. Like if we have to move to attack, if we're not allowed to move as part of the assault, then I got me a big problem. Because I kind of have to delay and not do things. Now, I could take things for free. And here's the thing. If I don't declare one, France has already passed. That would just end the turn. Well, it would have it would end the offensives, the individual offensives. But then we go back to the regular turn sequence, right? Non-combat movement has a cost. I don't think I get to move. I do not think I get to move. Which means I might want to declare an offensive just to, and have to pay supplies just to take things like Luxembourg and the French not slip into there. Because after that comes the movement phase. Wowzer. So I think on this first turn, we are going to pass. This feels really weird, but the Germans don't want to attack along here particularly. We want to gain ground up here. Now I've got a lot of supply back here because I think I need it for defense too, but yeah. Now here, I had initiative. I get to keep initiative for the movement phase, which is good because I get to push forward at this point. And I get to do it without having to pay for movement in terms of supplies. This feels weird as hell to me. Like, I'm so used to move attack, but this game doesn't support it as far as I can tell. So now I do my non-combat movement. Well, it's not non-combat movement. I do my movement, and this is... I don't remember. I don't remember. So like overseas movement, they say deduct supplies. So I think I have it right that you don't pay for this shit. I don't remember forced marching. I probably don't want to do it. So movement phase, you probably have to stop when I hit a zone of control. Yep. Ew. Yeah, I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose a strength point. Force marches are. You really need to want them. Okay, so I guess I just start moving some units forward. I don't worry about all the activation shit that I would normally do. Rain means I only have 4 movement points, so I can't get very far. I was shifting my way up, and I have not paid attention to what I just captured. I gotta look, because I may have actually taken something. Probably in Luxembourg, but... I've gotten as far as here. Unlike in La Grande Guerre, railroads look like they're a lot less important because supply is linked to the headquarters, kind of a la OCS. It's got a fair and unlike Offensive à Outrance, for that matter, too, or the whole 1914 series, to be honest. Well, I don't have the Twilight in the East, so I can't speak to that, but... Yeah, it's much easier to move your supplies by rail, but they can inch their way forward. And there's nothing like the headquarters keeps your units in supply. Yeah, sure, it does that in these other games too, but it doesn't have to be on a rail line to do so. And that's going to change a lot, giving a little bit more flexibility towards where attacks can be done and where they can't. Because the rail lines really dictate things in these other games. They heavily do. Explicitly described, they put captured markers on the locations that are worth something. The Germans have succeeded in taking a city, quite a few actually, so they've succeeded in their monthly goal. The French actually lost a city here. So they failed at their monthly goal. Luxembourg doesn't count against them, but this will. And I'm not going to get any kind of opportunity to get it back. The Germans just walked in there. That's life. You know, I would have had to pay supplies and everything to move forward. I'd rather not do that. Now, I should be on the Entente side of the movement turn. And everything's just moving for free. I did find cavalry is so useful at this stage in the game where there's like a big opening that I actually shifted a cav up from back here because the cav was what was able to capture this. May not be able to hold it next turn, but, you know, kind of interesting how easily, I don't know, you know, again, this is like the border crossing. There wasn't really a lot of conflict at that point. So now I go over, and the rain has really reduced the move forward. It could have been a lot uglier. I could be out into, you know, down here and whatnot. What is this yellow border? I did not take a French city. I took a Belgian city, actually. So France did not lose anything yet. That's part of Belgium there. A little yellow line there. Yeah, I was looking and I'm like, wait, that's not France. There's a line there. Okay. Now I move the Entente. Because I'm using normal movement, I'm actually able to do something very much like the Dial plan here in World War I with the French army and the Brits pushing up. I can use rail movement and whatnot. There's nothing the Germans can do about this. Even if the weather was good, I would only be able to get to like here. Looks like it's always an option in this game. There are things that feel a little funky here. That's one of them. The making rail nets less vital is another one. By the way, it doesn't look as pretty from up here. Or maybe a little bit of time has passed. But I'm getting a nice sunrise. I was getting a much prettier one, I think, like 2 minutes ago. This is the problem. I go to see the sunset, and I'm like, I get there, and I'm not at the moment. There's like, you know, a very little time, I guess, when it's just perfect. And this is pretty, but it was prettier a moment ago. And I sit there, but then I get bored. So another one is there aren't as many forts as I feel like there should be. Feels like the number of forts is too low, especially on the German side over here, but maybe in general. Again, I'm going off my knowledge from games more than anything else because I don't have a lot of historical knowledge. But there was like one, there's Königsberg and there's like one fort here in the lakes. Other games that I play tend to have a couple of forts down here. And this is, if anything, there's more hexes than those other games tend to have. I'm not sure. Here I'm thinking again of the big strategic games. This one, it feels like it blows up the scale a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, I'm able to put a solid front through Belgium. This did not historically happen at all. And is it going to deny the Schlieffen plan? I don't know, you know, but the fact that I wasn't up on Liège and the Allies have the rail net in Belgium, they could have actually deployed further forward, but the problem is there's no good location. And they'd have to be on the rail, which wouldn't really work very well. So Dial looks like a great place, though, to stand, and I don't see what the Germans are going to do about it. Now that's going to put me on reinforcements. There aren't any reinforcements on the supply. No trenches. There's no defense of Paris. We look at the national morale. Is this a month? Is my question. I think it counts as a month for the national morale and the monthly goals, even though it's only a week. everybody who was eligible succeeded. So we'll reset that. I do have a few points for the Germans that they're going to get here. I don't know how many. Like 8, I think. About 6, and the Belgians lose 1. No combat operations in the south at all. And yeah, see, the monthly goals are every turn. That's why I think that's the case. And I think captured hexes are removed. Yeah. I think we have just finished the first turn of the game. And we're in the second week. This feels like really iffy, really iffy history at this point. With the French, basically, it feels to me like the Germans should get a free turn to cross into Belgium before the Brits even land. Because it was their crossing into Belgium that caused the Brits to actually to declare war. And there are other games. Ooh, that's getting prettier. There are other games, and I think Le Grand Guerre is one of them. Certainly, the light version, which I can't remember the name of now, Balance of Power. Certainly Balance of Power has the possibility of keeping Britain out of the war completely by not invading Belgium. I'm fine that that's not allowed, but those British forces being able to march in, that's pretty iffy. The French forces marching in, they're basically violating the Belgian neutrality at the same time the Germans are. Like, it just doesn't work that way. So I feel like there should be a restriction preventing anyone from going into Belgium on that first turn. Let me see if I'm missing something. And if I am, I will pull back and change my defenses. I'm guessing this would be a rule, a special rule on Belgium, to be honest. I don't remember seeing anything like this. Oh, these are fucking scenarios. There's no restriction on the Brits moving on this first turn that I'm aware of. I'm going to lose battery very shortly. Let me cut off. See anything? I didn't see anything under the Brits restricting them. Really, it feels to me like the German invasion of Belgium should not be able to be answered on this first week turn. Getting real pretty. I'm going to break there. I got further than I thought. I got further quicker than I thought I would, mainly because nothing happened, because we weren't in contact with the enemy. This next turn, if the weather's good, maybe the French launch some attacks, but the Germans definitely have to blow through Liège, and we're not quite in contact with the French. I mean, we're in a couple of locations, but not really well enough to launch a real offensive, whatever that is. I mean, we're not going to gain much off of anything that we can do. Got up too late to really be able to go shopping or anything. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, but only in the morning. Maybe I'll make it tomorrow. Again, as usual, it's not like I'm going to starve. It's just the easy stuff to eat is decreasing. In particular, my ham. I've run out of ham. Lunch meat of any kind. All right, we're going to try another turn. First thing we do is check the weather. We only have to worry about one front again. Maybe it'll be better. This time it's a 7. That's going to be fair. It's only fair. That doesn't sound like good, right? I don't know. All right, next thing. Supply. We do a quick initiative check. This time the Germans have the initiative, so they have to operate first. It's not an advantage. Is there anything I want to do? I don't think any of the German headquarters want to push ahead. This one might. This one might. Yeah, let's squeeze ahead a little bit. It gives me a little bit more play, but I have an 8 hex command range. So basically, you know, it's not like the army is going to outrun the supplies. For air phase, I don't see anybody doing anything. That puts us back to the offensive phase. We have an initiative check there again. It goes to the Germans. Here, I think it's important that I take the initiative, because I want to try to bust through here and gain some ground. Already, so the Entente made a line historically around Mons, kind of up here, and then they fell back from it, and kind of abandoned Antwerp and whatnot. To its fate. Here. Instead, we have, you know, something like the Dial Plan, where we're right up there in Belgium. Now, is it going to do me any good? I don't know. You know, but I'm anchored with at the Netherlands instead of floating off loose, and it feels weird. I got to think a little bit about big pushes and whatnot. It's hard to make one. I have to normally you have to make them per year. The French have a specific requirement here during August 1914 that I have to do a bunch of them. So I know they're going to have to make attacks. Trying to figure out how to open up. I think what I do is I activate the First Army, try to bust things through there, keep the rest maybe in place. I don't know how important it is given hexes. Terrain's going to become very hard to get later on. So gaining a lot of terrain early would be good, but I don't know that like that extra single hex here is going to be that important. The danger though is this guy's kind of exposed. The French can hit that. That can be, I think, I don't remember. I have to find what is the third big push. It's off something called La Roche. It's got to be south of that. And I can't find that now, so I'm going to have to pick through for that. Just keeping it in mind, La Roche is right here. That means I can't do a big push all along here or anything like that. But could be just a little south. It's still trying to get a grasp on what this system implies, but one thing I will be doing is I will be dropping an activated on the fuck. See, I had to shift my carpeting. All that dust is from the bottom of it. I tried to knock most of it out before I brought it up here, but anyway, I tripped on it is what I'm trying to say. I will have to activate this, and then I'm going to activate specific units that I attack with. Now, the question is, do I want to activate something else? Do I have another attack I want to make? Like, say, here. Wait! Oh, fuck, I must have screwed up. Look, I'm realizing something. This is what pisses me off. Assault attacks. These attacking units enter enemy hexes to conduct combat and can be supported. That makes it sound like I have to be able to move. But I think I can only move into the hex that I'm attacking. But I can use my movement to do that. So I could have hit this on the first turn. I'm so pissed off by, like, I'm going to leave it as is, but I'm so pissed off because it's hard to grasp what the rules are really talking about here. Like, there's no movement in here in the offensive phase until you hit non-combat movement. There's no discussion of movement except entering the hex you're attacking. And when I realized, before, I'm like, oh, you have to already be set up. I don't think that's the case. I think you have to spring your forces forward, and then they get the non-combat movement for any additional units you want to commit to move, to fill the line in. This is going to be a clumsy game. I can tell already. I almost don't have the stomach for it. Part of me that's thinking that I may restart after the first 4 weeks or something like that, or whatever, because I'm getting, my inability to play the game is getting in the way of what kind of results I'm going to get. And I really don't want to fuck up this badly right away. We'll see how it goes. Now the question here is, I kind of peek at the side, maybe. I can't actually pick up the units, but I can kind of squeeze in and see. I think all there is here is the fort that's there and the unit that's there. Now, the fort is like a 3-point fort. So I'm going to have to get a lot of hits in on it. I think I want to commit a fair amount of units to this. But they may not necessarily be the units in the front. Because those can advance the most if I succeed using non-combat movement. Oh boy. I mean, the thinking in this is just so weird, right? As opposed to something, any other World War I game I've played hasn't had this kind of, I don't know if it's subtlety or just this kind of oddness to the way the rules are designed for how it plays. I'm thinking like La Grande Guerre with its very, very detailed combat situation and everything. But here, I think what I'm going to do is bring up the units from the rear to make the attack. Now, I have to pay. There's no indication that I have to pay anything for this initial movement, but I'm going to have to pay for the initial combat. God. Moved like 4 units forward. I can't do a big push against this hex. I was starting to think, oh, I ought to look up the big push rules. Technically, these guys have an activated marker on them. I'm not worried about that because they're the attack hex. It would be useful to have maybe a combat marker or something to remind me where the fight is, because maybe I'll use that extra weather marker. I think I'm going to have to pull the units out like I would in La Grande Guerre. So for my initial, let's flip back to that. Once all offensives are declared, I'm going to leave everything else behind. And again, I may restart. The attacker, oh, wait, we didn't move. Move isn't in there. Where did it tell me I get to move? Now I could do attrition attacks everywhere, and I probably should have on the first turn, to reduce and blunt each other. That didn't happen. Fuck. Like, I'm so fixated on the regular offensives, I forgot that this has an attrition system as well. And if I wasn't going to do anything, I should have done that. Really should have played a starter scenario of this rather than set up the whole thing. But it's okay. I'm going to be able to do the 1914 as my starter, and this is maybe what we get to see. I don't know where we are. Okay. So we go right to firing, I guess. But when did we pay our supplies for all of this? And what happened to the initial bombardment? Where's that? Why is that not in here? Shouldn't that be something that's immediately there? Fuck. I'm not finding the rules on that. I gotta find the initial bombardment. Why is that not referenced in the assault? The rules are horrible. They're like, there are the ambiguities, there are the direct contradictions, but then also they're just set up really, really poorly. Here, okay, we deduct supplies first. Would be really useful to have a rule that tells me what's going on here to reference this. Then we determine the pre-deployment, and then we commence the battle way down here. Fuck. This is the sequence of play. This is where initial combat is actually described, but it doesn't tell you everything that you need to do. Actually, here it goes. Initial combat occurs in these steps. Units are moved into the attack hex, and all artillery and air support is declared. I'm going to use the one headquarters that I have to support. Okay, but then we actually have the rules here. So the artillery bombardment goes into this rule. I'm going to write that in here. And the supply, and that's not covered until we get over to here, pre-artillery bombardment. Where is combat itself declared? Like, is there a rule on combat? Or is this actually the rule on combat? Here we're in national morale, which feels like a very late thing that should be in the game. Here's in the supply, the amount of supply land units use. In combat itself, I don't think that there is a section on combat beyond what was in the sequence of play area. This is why it's so confusing to me. Okay, I'm going to write some things in on this, and I'm pretty sure this is abortive. I'm having trouble writing things in because there's all these stupid pictures on this player aid sheet. It's packed enough. It really would have been helpful to have a larger player aid section. This really packs it in. Again, obviously, there was an attempt to save as much money as they could on this, kind of small company production, but yeah. Not a lot of thought was put into making the game playable. So the question is, how many rounds of bombardment do I want? And where is the supply cost? The supply cost may not be here. I'm not in the supply section. Wait, I thought the supply section came after this. Supply back here? Yeah. Yeah. So now we have to hunt for, okay, I don't see artillery supply. I see land units during attrition. Participating headquarters require one supply point. I think that's per fire, but that's not there. Per round of combat, yeah. So the first 3 rounds are cheap. But if I go more than 1 round, I give warning. I'm going to spend for 3 rounds of initial artillery fire. And so I have to expend 3 supply off of a headquarters that's involved in this. That's the first. Say the mixed size of the counters, I don't think that's the big deal. I think it's that the counters are actually very, very thin to begin with. Like if they were all the size of my mixed ones, it would be fine. But it's causing it to be difficult to paw through a stack and get things. And you need to paw through the stack and get the supply markers all the time. This is a game that is almost begging to be put on Vassal or something. Actually, I think there was a computer game of it. Or a computerized version. I don't know. I know I saw something that recently that was, and I think it might have been this. That messing around, with all the fiddling with the counters and everything, makes it much, much more likely you're going to tilt a counter. And because the orientation of the counter is important, not just for facing, or not for facing, but for how strong the unit is. I've often had situations where I've had to correct a unit. And my way of dealing with that during movement has been, oh, I can look and see what its initial strength is. But that's not going to work very soon. You know, we're fighting now. I think that component choice, I really wish they just made 2-step units, because the 4-step really causes a lot of the issues. But anything where you have these stupid fucking rotating counters, it always is a big minus to me. Here, to attack this 1 hex, I have to have 2 hexes that I have to be pawing through regularly. One is the combat hex itself, which, fine, I pull that off. But then there's also the headquarters hex, which, you know, and it may be more than 1 headquarters, which I'm expending supplies for all over the place. 3 rounds of ammo or 3 rounds of supply for 3 rounds of attack. Now we look here, and I hit on 3s or more. Or 3s or less. 2. Okay, so my bombardment was completely ineffectual. And I've given him a +1 to the defense. Now, each participating land unit requires 1 supply point per combat round in order to participate. I don't believe that the defender has to expend any supply. Or whatever's involved in that. So this round of combat is going to cost me 4. Now I got to go dig into there. I've already taken 3 off of the 40 I had there. Now I got to take 4 more. You can see the supplies are going to be burned through really fast. This is why I'm really worried about them. You start with a big pile of them allocated all over the place, I guess, depending on how you do things, but they burn down so damn fast. You know, I had 40 there. At the end of this round of combat, I will have spent 7 of them. Last 4 turns. Now this is my biggest headquarters in terms of supplies. It was what I saw as the spearhead of everything. Most of the others have 30. One has 35. I could have apportioned things differently. There's no question about that. I could also shift some supplies to this. A lot of fiddly action and everything. I much prefer, so far, the level of attention that LGG required on me. And yeah, I have somebody who's regularly asking me to replay that in sort of the level of detail that I've been playing as time has gone on. It's going to happen. It's going to happen if I survive long enough, because it is a game that I definitely need to get back to. One thing that would help, oops, I blurred you for a bit there, unfortunately. Turned on too quickly is really what it came down to. One thing that would help is little tracks for the armies. And actually, you could probably do this, I don't know, I could just write a sheet of paper with the supply levels that each army has, and only kind of worry about it, you know, keep different track of it during an offensive or whatever. So the fact that this now has 37, I could just have that written down and remove from that as I'm going, instead of pawing through the counters. I haven't done that yet, but so yeah. Let me pull that 4 off, but I'll probably come up with some other kind of solution because this pawing through the stacks is not working for me. I look through the attacking numbers, and they're all level 3. I didn't want to put my biggest units forward because they were the ones in the front. So the attacker fires, he rolls, he's going to need a 3. Now there's special effects here, and I don't remember where to find them, that happen if I roll a 1. Like I get to choose what takes the hit or something, and I can't find that rule. Maybe it's here. Whenever a hit is inflicted, yeah, see, all the combat rules are here. This is in the sequence of play, okay? It really is. Whenever a hit is inflicted with a roll of 1, the player who rolled the 1 can decide where the casualty can be taken. Okay. So I have 1 hit. I've done 1 hit. The defender comes back. The fort doesn't get to fire, but the Belgian unit does. It doesn't hit. So there's going to be 1 casualty taken. I think I'm taking it on the fort, but I got to look up the rules on forts to see if they do me any other good other than simply being padding to take casualties. Look that up, and fortress and trenches have strength points like combat units, but these are only used to take casualties. They're just padding is all they are. That feels really wrong. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if all it's capable of doing is taking losses, and I don't want to surrender the hex until I give it up, there I am. Now, this was the only operation that I was doing in this offensive, this offensive phase, this sub-phase of the offensive phase, right? In the offensive phase, you alternate offensives. I think you can do multiple per map. The rules are a little fuzzy on that, but the only way you can make them make sense is that way. Like, there's certain rules that seem to really imply that. So I'm on the next round of combat. Now, well, actually, so here, in the initial combat, I don't think I stopped yet. Okay, this doesn't clearly, I commenced the battle. Oh, there was a +1. I think the Belgians actually hit me. I think the Belgians actually hit me. Because they got a 4. Okay. I forgot they got a +1 because of the artillery bombardment. I wasn't allowed to use artillery in the first round of combat because I did a pre-bombardment. But now I can use artillery, and now I have to go look up the headquarters rules again because I'm not convinced. I don't know that they hit on a 1 through 3 anymore. Artillery during attrition, no. Where's artillery during... Here's the predetermined artillery bombardment, but they're allowed to be used again In subsequent rounds, inflicting hits on a roll of 3 or less. Yeah, so they become good again when used in conjunction. And again, this is kind of the rolling barrage idea, which wasn't developed yet. You didn't keep using your artillery. Now, maybe you did here, because again, this is the mobile phase of the war and things are a little different. But when you were in the trench phase, and it's also against a fortress, so like there's all kinds of stuff that really doesn't fit very well, but anyway. So what that means is, since this is the second round, I'm going to spend another 5 points of supplies to fire at this. I pull things off the map, I'm forgetting where my headquarters were located. I think this is the right hex, but it might have been this hex. I'm not sure. Nah, there was some separation between the two armies. Okay. I got to swap batteries, but I've paid for another round of combat. Let's see what happens. I guess with the artillery in there, I've got 4 rolls of 3. That's 1 hit. I get to choose where it is. That's 3 hits. I get to choose 1, and now the 2-point guy. Okay, 3 hits. I get to choose where one of them is. How do I distinguish that? And I'm due a GMT package today, so I got to watch for the truck. How do I distinguish that? Yeah, I guess I write it down, or I use counters or something. But right now I've generated 3 hits on him. The Belgians get to fire back at a 3. They get to pick what they want to hit. I'll keep picking on this thing. I'm not sure if that's wise or not. Might be better to weaken a lot of units. 3 hits. Okay. 2 of those hits were happening on the fortress. 1 on the Belgian unit. And I think we're going to give up the hex at this point. I have to swap batteries. Point out one of the issues with the LGG, why it became more narrative focused and I zoomed in less. I think I zoomed in a fair amount during certain early battles and whatnot. But some of it is I've just become bloated in terms of how much coverage I give to everything. But a fair amount of it is I don't look at the mechanisms once I'm comfortable with them. And that's a game that I was comfortable with. Anyway, let's see where we are next. I also probably didn't want to do the, hey, let's look things up all the time in real time. Defender can retreat into an adjacent hex. Okay. I'm going to figure out where he flees to. I think I'm best off here. There's better terrain there. I've got to fix some things, but these units all go in there, and I put a little captured flag there. This is whatever the fuck. I can't remember the town. Liege. This is Liege. Definitely a place I want to capture. These stack. I've got a damaged unit there, but I'm not done. Got myself missing something. There's a +1 DRM on defending land units as well, because this was rough terrain. It's possible that I missed a hit there, but I don't think so. I hit both times with the Belgian unit, so that didn't have any effect. What I'm trying to find here is what happens after this initial combat. The units which participated remain unless they violate stacking. Now here it's weird. Yeah, I have to pull out of this hex because the next thing is the option for active defense. So there are 4 units in this hex. I have to pull out into friendly terrain, I believe. Yeah, and that's going to be flinging back to where I was before. Now, I'm going to send the damaged unit back there. No position to conduct an active defense here. The Belgians want to run further, if anything. But now, we're at attacker exploitation. After all active defenses are completed, the attacker may continue his initial offensives. In every hex in which was attacked, conquered, and held, the attacker may continue to move the units which participated in their earlier offensive and may move into an adjacent hex or attack adjacent enemy units. This is fucked up because I've already had to withdraw 2 units. Now, I could be attacking along a broader front, but I'm not allowed to because the terrain was open. I wasn't allowed to move attacking units into these surrounding areas. This feels wrong. It feels like something's fucked up. And I'm going to be facing a combination of that rough terrain, which gives that +1 defender, plus a river, which the defender gets first fire and the attacker gets a -1 to their strength for every unit. This is painful if I want to exploit. I could throw the artillery in again. I do not believe that I want to attack this hex. I think I'm at too many disadvantages to pursue him. I've lost half my force. He's got a strength of 3. My strengths are all reduced to 2s, my 2 strengths, and I could throw artillery in, but it's going to cost me supplies to fire. I think that lone unit is in a lot more danger of being surrounded than he is of any kind of, like, the idea of me attacking him seems absolutely wrong. Now, the next thing we hit is non-combat movement. I can move any non-activated units. This will activate them. This will cost 1 supply point per unit that I move, and they can capture hexes. This allows me to surround him if I want. Well, not fully. Because the reason I would want to attack him is to open things up so I can move in further. Ground is important. I guess I have to attack him. I hate doing this. Okay, so only these 2 units can go in. And I am going, and I've kind of, hidden which units have crossed the river. This is another problem. Only the units that cross the river are charged. I have no way of getting around him, though. And I'm still within range of the artillery, so 3 more shots, and we don't get an initial bombardment on these guys. Three more supplies, and I guess we'll fight them. I think it's important for me to wipe that unit out because that will allow me to advance. Now, I have the initiative on the regular movement phase. You keep the initiative. And I think that's across all fronts. You keep the initiative that you rolled in the combat. There's no marker to indicate who has the initiative for the combat phase. I guess you could use a flag or something for that. I don't know. I don't know what to do with the flag markers. There are a lot of them. What they say is they're mainly there to show you what the flag is. Great. But yeah, let me deduct and roll some more combat. Among those 3 rolls, I managed to get lucky. I should have an activated marker on this stack. This stack. Those are the guys that I threw back behind the lines. This guy is also going to get one. But yeah, I managed to wipe out the Belgians. They're put on their starting power over into. I'm using this as my force pool instead of that. Yeah, I have units over there, but that's because those nations started with a force pool. I don't want to move them in. They're not on the board yet. They're not in the game yet. Now, I have spent 15 of my 40 supplies on my most active army to do this. And now, the question is, oh, and the Germans succeeded in their monthly goals or weekly goals or whatever, because that happens every turn, by taking that hex. The question is, do I want to spend at 1 supply per more points to push the Germans forward? If I don't do it, the Entente can spend the same kind of costs and move their defensive line forward. I do not believe that the Entente wants to build a defense that far forward. So it becomes worthless for me. Like, I'm spending too much to push my forces at this point. If he expends to move forward, that's his choice. And once we get to the regular movement phase, I don't have to pay to move my units, and they don't have to be in command or anything like that. So I can fill in the space and prepare myself for another round of attack. Oh boy. That is going to put the offensive operations over on the Entente. I activated 1 headquarters and a couple of stacks of units with that headquarters. Now, I actually have units under that headquarters that are not activated, so I can't just leave the activated marker on the top the way I've got it, but I'm going to try to remember that those units haven't been activated yet, or something. I don't know. I'm so... This system is too painful, I think. Certainly feeling that way right now. Maybe it'll grow on me. Things do. Okay, back up here. So now the Germans took 1 offensive action. And now I'm on the French. They have to take actions, otherwise the Germans could pass and, force the Plan 17 thing. Well, somebody on the Entente side has to do it. And damn, I don't know what to do. It's all so painful, right? One thing I could do is I could spend to push forward. I had already decided I kind of like this dial line, but other than these guys, there is a river line along here, and it's actually more defensible. I think I'm going to spend my supplies. And don't declare an offensive. This is the weird thing. I don't know how it's worded to declare an offensive. Oh my God. Oh, this is fucked up. When a front offensive is declared, which front map it will take place on, and move the offensive marker for that allowance down by 1. Okay, this fucks everything up. I've not understood this. So there's places in the rules where it seems to indicate that I would be conducting things in this pulsed fashion that I've kind of been playing at. But now I'm finding this rule where you have one offensive per map. It's not going to allow for that. I've got this already marked here. I didn't really, well actually, that's marked at 3. Why the fuck's that at 3? Because there are 3 maps that are effectively in play for most turns. I'm really not getting this. Like there were places where it indicated stuff about not being able to move a unit again after it's been activated, which made it feel like the whole game was going to be pulsed and not some one single massive offensive that you decide, okay, I'm going to do this map now, right? But this, with the front offensives, subphase 8 listed above. Is that just this? I don't know. This seems to indicate that you only get a number of offensives. Oh, here we go. You may conduct multiple front offensives on the same front, but only use units which were not used in previous. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, you'd be giving up a map. And now somewhere it tells me how many front offensive I have, and it's the number of maps that are in play, essentially. Fuck. God, this is just not making any goddamn sense to me. Like, you could go twice here. You could break your offensives up twice in the West, but it would mean giving up something like your ability to do anything in the Balkans or in... I mean, you'd still get movement, but it would give up your opportunity to do any kind of combat operations anywhere else on the map. Now, I've got to find where it tells me that how many offensives I get, but God damn it. Here, each alliance has as many offensives as there are active front maps. For example, in August 1914, only the Balkans, Eastern and Western. So maybe we have 3, I don't know, because there's only one turn in August 1914 where all 3 are actually able to be played on. See, if you don't have that pulsing activity, if it's one side or the other just gets to pick a map and play everything on it, 1, that makes it a lot more complicated. 2, I'm not really so sure. I mean, these things are still needed because they tell you which units haven't moved that you get to move. But I don't know. Offensive is done on a front-by-front basis. During an offensive, HQs of a particular front are activated. Each alliance only has 1 offensive. Yeah, so I actually it does clear that up. Yeah, so the idea of like, oh, you could take multiple offensives on a single map. I guess maybe if somebody else did something, if I do something on the West Front map and then the opponent does something on that West Front map, it might open up an opportunity that I'm willing to give up an offensive. Not that this makes a goddamn bit of sense, right? Like, France and England are not coordinating with Russia and Serbia to the extent that, like, yeah, hey Russia, if you don't take any offensive actions, we can slip another one in there. I don't know what to do. I really don't. I mean, obviously this is a messed up thing. I want to play more of it to get more of a feel of it. I can't. So here's the other thing. You get more of a breakthrough opportunity, right? These guys broke through. I would now have an opportunity to slip behind where I went and attack. And this is what looked kind of interesting. But obviously I don't, because I only have one offensive for this turn. So the Germans actually failed to do anything, really. Whereas I guess I have to move all my pieces on the front at the same time. I don't know what I'm going to do to try to fix this particular peculiarity. I was counting on the Germans not being able to get another action. I'm gonna allow them that, I think, in the sense that I'm gonna have the Entente take all their activities. Boy, this is going to be painful. But among other things, I'm going to move up to this line. And yeah, I have to figure out every fucking thing at once on the entire front now, which is what I was kind of trying to avoid doing. It was a laziness factor. I've been having trouble making my way up here, and I'm having trouble staying up here now as I start to realize just what I've gotten myself into. I think I go down and I watch some more TV or whatever the fuck it is, because I can't face this. This isn't what I was counting on. You know, I was counting on, okay, I'll trigger some of this pulsed. I was just getting used to that kind of pulsed idea of a game. Although, to tell you the truth, I'm looking at doing an entire front, and it looks like a nightmarishly complex thing to do. Although, obviously, it would be an option under the rules as I was understanding them. Didn't turn that light on. So, the situation that I'm facing here is something that, I'm going to give it another crack, but it's something that, what is it? I'm trying to remember where I'll find it. My Blitzkrieg Legend that I wanted to kind of start my OCS project up with again, right? Because it's early. It's part of the reason I'm afraid of doing that, is that I'm going to have to do way too much on all too many fronts all at once, or in all too many locations along the front or whatever. But okay, let's start thinking about the French. The thing is, I've got 3 easy activations I'm going to do. These guys are going to use non-combat movement to move up to the line. Might end up, because I have to be able to attack, might end up launching an attack on this stack. This can be supported by the artillery, all kinds of artillery, honestly. But we're hoping to gain that hex, and because that is part of the river line we want to control. Now, I've got to make 2 big pushes, so now I'm going to start looking up the big push stuff. And this is what really hits me, is because I have to pick like 4 adjacent spaces or something like that I'm willing to attack. The rule on that, and the big push markers are only put on the headquarters that are going to be responsible for it. I look down my line. I have 2 down here. This is where I would historically want to do that. I have a 3rd big push I need to do, but I can live without without triggering that yet. I have to do 2 turns of big push in a row, and I may want to get more. The rain made sense why I didn't do anything right off the bat on that first turn. So I'm going to do these. I haven't figured out where my attacks are going to be yet, though. And that's going to be 4 contiguous hexes. That's going to be painful. That's going to be seriously painful. So I'm not going to have a whole shitload of odds. Now, the final thing that I do is I'm going to be activating my other armies, which I guess are these 2, to do attrition attacks. Because I want to activate everything, right? You know, there's no reason not to do all the attacks. So I think we've got every army. Wait, there's an army here. The third, oh no, I had that accounted for. So I'm going to activate these 2 to do attritional attacks, whatever that means. Okay. That's the initial offensives, I guess. Now, it's all done at once. And it can interfere with each other and all kind of shit like that. The one thing that's not done is the non-combat movement. By the way, there are no limitations on Anglo-French cooperation in this game, which is weird. You do have the army delineations, which more or less keep you from, you know, just interspacing Brits in with French and all that. But you can do quite a bit if 2 armies are near each other. I'm allowed to do these attritional offensives. They're not initial combats, as far as I can tell. I don't know where they fit in. The rules don't really hold your hand, by the way. The thing I'm really excited about, I got Thunderbolt, which I'm not all that excited about because I forgot it comes in a Ziploc. And I'm going to have to figure out how to get it into, I guess, probably the Carthage box. But the one that I'm really excited about, but I'm not going to get to play for a while because I got a couple of, is this Baltic Empires. Came today. That looks really cool. That's, and, you know, and now it's like pushing the American presidency out of the way a little bit in terms of things I'm going to cover. But that's the thing I'm the most excited about out of everything that's on the near horizon. And I keep telling myself, I don't know, there's so many things I tell myself I got to play. I keep telling myself I got to get to War Cult. I guess I just try to fit the attrition attacks into the initial combat. I don't know. But I'm going to try to do the offensives first. All offensive, the assault offensives. I'm going to try to set them up first. I think I'm kind of screwed here. Maybe I'm thinking the wrong thing and I shouldn't be activating these because they're so far away. But I got an 8 hex range for supply. So these armies can all actually supply and artillery impact. You know, I've got the Germans moving up so close. You don't need that, which feels weird. Coming to an ugly situation, which the extra space allows me to cope with, where I'm like, hey, some Brits are going to come from this direction, but they're going to be crossing the river. They're in this hex. I'm just putting them there notionally. The French are going to come up from this side. They're not crossing the river. That means they're going to be more effective in their combat. This would make a lot, you know, once I pull out of that hex and start actually fighting the battle, then that allows me a much greater capability to, to distinguish which units crossed the rivers and which didn't. But I got no easy way of doing that if we're, in tighter locations here. And here's the real problem. It's going to just be so crowded. I'm not going to be able to indicate those differences. Bigger hexes would help, but of course, then you couldn't cover the same amount of ground in the same map size. The pulsing would help if I was only able to activate one sort of operation at a time, but that's not the case. What I have to be careful of is to move in such a way that I capture all the hexes on the way in, so that I can pull back into those hexes. It's not a big deal, but it's something I gotta do. This is more than enough units to take this, especially since I'm gonna be using artillery and everything. I'm probably overexpending on this attack. I kinda don't care, because again, I've already decided I fucked this game up so much that I'm gonna have to restart. And all I have to fix is the west front. God. The next thing I did is I set up the big pushes. Each set's of 4. I don't feel like I want to do another one until I do the attrition. Now for this, I gotta flip through, find this other thing, attrition. Attrition attacks. 1 or 2 does not require involvement of any land units. Artillery may conduct these assaults alone. Okay. I don't know why attrition require what it means by attrition requires less supplies, except that there's going to be less rounds of it. But we're gonna try to do some. I gotta look more to try to find out how they work. The only place where I can find any rules on the attrition is the artillery duels and attrition offensives, which pretty much has to do with if I'm only using artillery. Whereas, if I go over here, it's 1 or 2 rounds of combat in length and does not require the involvement of land units. If land units participate in the attrition attack, enemy land units as well as artillery may participate in defense. When land units are involved, the offensive lasts 1 round. The attacked hexes may not be occupied. I think I want to use artillery alone, because if I attack, I'm attacking with a defense. Like, I'd be able to pile in, as far as I can tell, I don't think supply is less. It's just, even though it says it, I can't find any indication of that. It's just that the attack is less. And, okay, so I could launch attritional attacks. They're like the minor attacks that happen in La Grande Guerre. You can do them, you have a limited number of them you can do, but you really don't want to do more than that. But the main purpose is to wear down the enemy forces. Well, here, what I want to do is I want to use my artillery to reduce some of these hexes so that the Germans don't have as many strength points for any kind of counterattack. I don't know how much it does for me, but again, we're kind of testing out the system on this without a lot of care about what it's going to impact. Oh boy. So we get to initial, and I haven't decided where I'm hitting. Probably hit this with the 6th Army here, and I don't know if I got any range I want. This I might want to attack. Why don't we move a couple of units in there and try to do a round of combat there, just to we're not going to take the hex. I could declare it as an offensive, just not a big push offensive. You know. Is there a reason for me to take that hex? A little bit, not much. The advantage there would be I could get numerical superiority and beat it up. Why don't I want it to be an offensive? I don't know. I'm really having trouble distinguishing why I wouldn't want to do an offensive, except that it lengthens my line, is the only reason I wouldn't want to. I guess that's okay. Yeah, let's throw in. We'll try all different kinds of things. Nice thing after a battery swap is that when I look at initial attacks, that can go several rounds. So it's not like I do a round of combat here. It's not as bad as the way integration is going to work in or worked in War and Peace. I can do several rounds. It's not that I do a round of combat here, then I come down, do a round of combat here. I get to handle each combat hex one at a time. What I'm not sure about is the artillery. For example, these big pushes, do I only get to do an artillery bombardment in one hex, or do I get to do it in all of them? I'm going to burn through supplies and be fucked, but I kind of feel like there's not enough supplies to there just won't be, ever. And that was, my worry wasn't that there wouldn't be enough, but that I would not buy enough when it comes time to buy. But I haven't had any choice here, and I'm trying to undergo to accomplish these offensives, and I'm they're just going to fizzle out because I run out of supplies. I mean, I used 15 out of 40, more than a third of my supplies to take one hex. Yikes. Pulled the units out of this hex. And they weren't actually all in it, but that was just to make things easier. I got a couple of German units in it. These units are affected by the river. These units are not. I have to pay supplies for all of this, and figure out my artillery bombardment. I'm going to do a one-round bombardment because I think I can take the hex in one round. In which case I don't want to give him the... Trying to think what the bonus is. It's like a +1, but I don't remember what it's for. I lost track of stuff already. Defending units, okay, so the defending units, they get a DRM of +1 for the first round of combat. That means they're more effective at fire. That's weird. What I actually feel like they would be, I mean, yes, I gave them a warning. That's pretty much what it is. Okay, fine. I'll live with their conceit there. I need to get more dice. Something cute. I only have one of these, but if this game were to become something that I really wanted to play, I think I would try to get a bunch of little 10-siders like this. I think they're just awesome. I mean, normally you don't use 10-siders in a bucket of dice situation, but these really please me for that usage. And honestly, I think Vampire, where you roll a fistful of 10-siders, I would prefer these for that. That's actually one of the reasons that I had a fair amount of 10-siders before I started scavenging from games. Let's figure out, we get the preliminary bombardment first. All right, I grabbed all these dice a little early. Let's do preliminary bombardments from all three headquarters. And so that's a supply each. They're going to hit on 3s each. Oh, I have some terrain here. It's rough terrain. I don't know what that does. Should remember this. +1 DRM for defending land units. Okay, that doesn't help right now. So I got 3 3s going at these Germans. And I get no hits. I got to reduce my supplies by 1 on each. That happens, I took 1 supply off each, and now I have to reduce them by the supplies of this. That's just being inefficient. But I wanted to point out, these stacks can get kind of big as you start breaking down your big supply stacks, because you've got 10s, 5s, and 1s. Well, you got 20s, 10s, 5s, and 1s. I don't know how I feel about that. But anyway, you can have pretty large stacks of supplies alone just showing up there. There might be units in there or whatnot, but that can start really making it unclear of what you're facing, because you know it's a big stack of supply. What you don't know is, are there 1 or 2 units in there too? You know? Anyway, let me pay the supplies for these guys. Calculate out our dice, and I don't know what to use for what. I've got 7 that are 3s. Okay. 7 that are 3s, and 2 2s. I think that's all. 9 units, yeah. 7 that are 3s and 2 2s. And we paid the supplies for them. We hit once. One way I could mark that 1 hit is with one of these, and I can use something special for other stuff. And now the Germans have a pair of 3s, and I was expecting to win on the first round. I rolled a lot of dice. Fuck. They get 2 hits, both chosen by the Entente. Both sides have the option to leave. The Germans are pretty impressed with what happened, so they're going to stick around. What do I get from the rough? I get the +1, yeah. They're going to stick around and fight a little more. They were happy with that. And therefore, I'm going to spend another load of supply. Whole of another casualty on each. And the Germans are like, this isn't working out well enough. I don't know if I'm getting horrible rolls or what. Now I'm allowed to throw artillery in. Now, let's see what I did. I spent 20 supplies on those 2 rounds of attack. Right? This is horrible. I mean, I'm eating supplies up so quickly. Luckily, I don't need them for defense, which is kind of weird. 11 more supplies thrown in, so I'm at 31 supplies for this 3rd round. I haven't rolled yet. But in addition to whatever rolls that I make for the actual troops, I'm also able to throw in another 3 that hit on 3s. Got the success we wanted. We killed the 2 German units. We're not done yet. Germans are hard to see. They're reserves, so they're probably at 3s. And they go here into the dead pile. This was their activated marker. We get a flag here, but we're not done yet, because we get activated on everything. Whoa, national morale is affected here? I don't buy that. We lost a Belgian division. That doesn't hurt us. It's the Brits and the French who don't want to lose a division. We should have to withdraw. That's not in here. This is not helpful. So I have to find my way back here. But as far as I can tell, after I pull back, so active defense comes after initial combat. I've got to do all the initial combats before I do an active defense. When do I pull back? I thought that's here. Yeah, that's up here in the initial combat before I hit active defense. So I have to withdraw into controlled hexes. I've made sure to control everything adjacent to me. I'll now have activated markers on them. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to pull back to here. I thought I was going to, but I've left a gap in my line there. That's me just probably picturing that the units were closer than they are or something. I don't know. Just my brain failing me there. So that's an attack by all of this. That means from here down I still have to do. I'm exhausted fighting a single hex. I might feel the same way with Le Grand Guerre because their combats are also quite intense. But I can tell you I'm not able to do, 10 more hexes of combat, although these are going to be relatively easy comparatively. So I'm going to back away. This battery's almost dead anyway. And good God, this thing is killing me. Okay, back up here. It's getting close to midnight. To the next of these attacks or offensives. In this case, it's going to be an attrition offensive, but using ground troops attacking this hex. I can't take the hex. Even if I wipe it out, if I could wipe it out, I probably would be doing a normal offensive. And remember, we still haven't finished. This isn't done. There's still capability for the counterattack. I don't know what it was called again. Active defense. But I want to get some of these out of the way in the proper ordering and whatnot. And I don't know, maybe get through all the French stuff tonight. And then go back to the Germans and let them have their crack wherever they might want to do. Supply costs are very high for combat, to the extent that, I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to sustain the kind of offensives that historically happened. But, hey, yeah. So here's the problem. You get your production every 3 turns. So it's hard to call off, slow down, stop, whatever, a series of attacks in an offensive while you still have money left, supplies, whatever. And while you still have the supplies left, and you think you can gain something, but you need to save those points up, especially with the big pushes and whatnot. And you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to give the advantage for a big push, which is only temporary, and very painful. I believe it's 5 national morale. I have to hunt through and find that. Anyway, before I get back to that, I'll give the French their, 10 national morale for declaring 2 big pushes. It does me little or no good unless I can continue the big pushes for 3 turns instead of the 2 I'm required to, and make it to the late summer production, the seasonal interphase that strangely happens, you know, after barely a month of fighting. When I come back to the game and restart it or whatever, assuming, it's a big assumption to be honest at this point, I am going to add some roles. Not going to allow the Brits or the French to enter Belgium on the first turn of the game. I don't think. I think whatever mistakes are happening here, it's so butchered right now. As I try to get an understanding of how the rules are supposed to be applied, that I don't know. I don't know what to do about it. And since there might be an active defense into this hex, I'm not sure. I'm beginning to have some thoughts. I don't know if it's what was intended. It certainly isn't supported by the rules as written, but nothing really works with them, like with the overseas thing, of how the symbolic is supposed to work. The guy who just upped the symbolic level doesn't get what they just upped. I think that's what it's meant to say, essentially. I don't know. As I start to set up this battle, I had questions about the artillery, which is there. I found a couple of interesting things here. A couple of statements in the HQ artillery section. One HQ unit is considered also to be one artillery unit. Once an HQ is activated, the artillery cannot be used for the rest of the turn, whether or not the artillery participated in an offensive. I don't know what the fuck that's supposed to mean. Like, you can't use it defensively? You can't use it in another hex? I don't know. But in addition, there's another one here. When firing in defense, inactivated artillery may fire into only one battle per enemy offensive. Defensive fire does not activate a headquarters. So that's indicating to me I can't use it defensively. Now, it says once an HQ is activated, the artillery cannot be used. Well, I activate the headquarters before I fire the artillery, like back in the declaration of offensives, which seems to indicate that I can't use that unit's artillery. That feels ridiculous. But then I'm certainly getting I don't think that I can fire inactive artillery. Yeah, it's per enemy offensive. What's an offensive? An offensive could be a front offensive or an individual offensive. It's not clear enough. So I'm left with lots of questions. I'm pretty sure that I can fire this artillery into this hex. And I was going to spend 5 supplies to do that, and then I'd get 3 rolls of 4 and 2 rolls of 3. But then I thought, well, maybe I want to use these too, you know, or these. I don't know. I really don't know. I think I can't commit it to another unit. But again, the rules are just not at all nailed down enough to make sense. And I think with these big pushes, I'm going to allow them, or any kind of offensive, I'm going to allow them to fire multiple times, you know, into all the hexes, not just into one. But again, I don't know. You know, the honest fact is that these divisions probably have artillery in with them. I find the Legrand-Guerre, which divides up the artillery functionality and makes you able to actually place it in specific hexes, so much more useful. But You know, essentially, you have, in that game, artillery pieces in every hex. Now, you know, and the amount of artillery that you have present is kind of, it's limited by basically the counters that are sitting on the board are the ones which have the artillery present in them. They're the headquarters or extensions of the headquarters. But yeah, I just don't know. I don't know what to do. Offensive can only go one round, and I got a hit, and that's all. And they did not get any hits back, and now the French pull out. Activated markers placed on the units so that I can't use them again. Essentially, I spent 5 supplies to get a hit. Yeah. I have completely neglected using defensive artillery. I don't think I could use these, but I could have used this because it hasn't activated yet. But again, it hasn't activated yet because of the weird screw-up I had. So it probably would have taken some kind of offensive action. These guys down here, they might have played into that, tried to kill some more French. Here we're doing the other, and again, I don't even know how much I'm learning. Like, how much am I internalizing the systems of this game and getting an idea of how to utilize them or whatever? I'm really not sure. In part because I'm stumbling around with, geez, do I even have the rules right at any level? Here, we have artillery duels and attrition offensive. If I fire 1 round, I hit on a roll of 3. I can fire again for the second and last round for another point. If I do this, I only hit on a 2. But if I do a 2 rounds, I open it up for the artillery duel. The artillery duel can eat up supplies. Oh, God. Which I really don't want to have happen. So I'm only going to do 1 round of fire here. And so I'll expend 1 supply there. I'm assuming I expended the supply there. And just make a roll. I don't know where I was going to hit. Why don't we hit the hex with the 6th Army, because it looks like I'm going to attack that at some point, maybe. Oh, wow, this is interesting. There's no big push there. Yeah, let's just do that. And I don't get a hit. Go down to the hard part, the big pushes. Before I touch on that, I wanted to talk about why the number of offensives up there confused me. This is because of Le Grand Guerre. I was kind of thinking of those as big push offenses. That's how many I'm allowed to play out of those, was kind of how I was looking at it. So, you know, I had 3 available. The French have to do 3 over the course of this month. I'd have 3 available each turn, but the idea there is that, you know, I can do these major offenses and it would still allow me that pulsed kind of activity on a front that it seemed like the rules support, but now it's beginning to seem like what it really is if I want that pulsing for any reason, some other ally, basically, like the Serbs or the Russians, assuming, you know, I had multiple offensives, like I will on the last turn of this month, would have to give up all opportunity for offenses, attrition, just about everything. They would not be allowed to conduct any attacks of any kind, which obviously, first of all, is ludicrous, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense that trade-off should even exist. And if it you know, if you did manage some hand wavy argument for why it exists, it's a huge, huge cost that you're putting to get some kind of minor advantage off of being able to attack, and then after that attack have a follow-up, a more of something that feels almost more like an exploitation type thing, even though exploitation's already built in. But I can't use the same units again, so it's not like I get a double turn or anything like that. It's just that I get a more extensive exploitation. Now, there's still exploitation combat in the game, so I don't really know what advantage there is to gain off getting that pulsing. But it certainly gave me a better handle on being able to do very little pieces at a time. All right, let me switch batteries and we'll start on the first of these big pushes. Question is, how intent am I on victory here? Am I just passing plan 17 off, which I think would be the normal thing. Try to do as little as you possibly can, which is one round of combat in each thing and pull back. And that feels a lot like what you end up doing in Le Grand Guerre. I don't know how realistic that is, but the other thing is, I don't know, there's a lot of things. This army could devote some artillery support, but only to one of the battles on what does it mean to be an offensive. Is it the offensive for the front, or is it the offensive for, what did they call it, individual offensives? Either way, I can only fire into one of these four by what it says. Now, I'm taking it as I can only fire once on the whole front. But again, I try to incorporate what I know. In Le Grand Guerre, the army firepower support is spread out among multiple hexes. So I would actually probably have artillery in every hex for most of the armies. Some of them don't have that much firepower. And that means that, yeah, I should be able to shoot through all of them. The headquarters isn't dispatching the artillery. It's actually, the artillery's there, it's dispatching the supplies. For some reason, it can dispatch the supplies better to artillery than it can to infantry. I don't know why, because it can pass it over mountain peaks and stuff like that, which feels weird, but anyway. That's not what this game says, that's for sure. So I am going... There's nothing that limits the headquarters, except maybe this. Once a headquarters is activated, it cannot be used for the rest of that turn, whether or not it participated in an offensive. I don't see anything that limits the number of hexes that the attacker can hit. But it would almost seem like artillery should be devoted to one hex in this game. In which case, this is kind of the important hex. Now, what's the terrain like there? Why is this important? Because it could cut the rail link there. Of course, there's a rail link going back here, so who cares? Let me look at the terrain and see if anything's going to give defensive bonuses, which I probably don't want to shoot at. If I'm successful here, I could conceivably turn the whole flank. Does that sound appealing? Let's throw the artillery in here. What kind of bombardment do I want to do? Let's do the 3-turn bombardment. That's going to give an additional advantage to the defender, I think. On the first round of combat, they get an additional +1. They're getting a +1 off the rough terrain anyway, so they're going to cause more casualties to us. Let's try that. A little easier, I'm just putting the supplies on top while the offensive's in progress. The bombardment killed one German. One French was killed during the actual fighting. And we're going to continue more rounds of this because, again, I'm looking at this as the key to this part of the offensive. Before, where 4 units caused me, where I spent 4 supply for the attack. So I spent 7 supply so far. Now I'm going to be throwing the artillery again. It's not going to fire anymore by my current interpretation. So now we're up to something like 12 supplies spent. I got another hit on the Germans. I get to pick, but it doesn't really matter. There's no fortresses or anything like that to help. We'll keep going. Through that, I can't afford to keep going because I'm doing a big push. I only had like 40 supplies there. I gotta run a bunch of battles. Not just this round, but at least one more turn, and I'm not getting more supplies in there. I think these big pushes are impossible. I don't know, maybe I just have too many units in there. But yeah, this is, I gotta pull back. A couple of losses here without causing anything. I guess I'll move to this one. I don't know. True, stuff is going to fall back to places, that is more complex. Actually, I think I need to do this one first. Because otherwise I might get myself in trouble. Looking around one round, I'm just trying to satisfy my plan 17 at this point. We have the final battle here. This last one did nothing to anybody. Bumped a counter, and therefore I don't know what its strength would be. Again, luckily I'm on the first turn of the game, but anytime later than this is going to be a real problem. Took one this time. My big push. I've used up more than half my my supplies. Now some of that, it would be about half if I had just done those attacks without artillery, without the 3-turn artillery support, without sticking around another round, whatever. But yeah, it looks like the big push is, you don't start off with enough ammo to maintain what's required. Now, again, I can shift stuff from other places, things like that. But good Lord, it's not pleasant what I'm seeing here. I think this one I just do one round of combat in each. I don't fire my artillery. I don't know, one round of artillery might be worth it. That's just one supply. But, I've got like 40 artillery. If I've got 4 units per hex for 4 hexes, trying to get enough odds that I have some chance of something happening. We're talking about, I spent 16 just on that, right? These headquarters only have like 40 after I dispersed them, in what I saw was an equitable way. Again, I can move them. Certainly during the supply phase, I can shift that supply around. I can use rail movement and everything and pretty much shift it around at will. But I don't know. I just don't know. Let's do these final ones. That's the end of the French offensives. Basically nothing happened except I ate up supplies. Little casualties here and there. But, what I'm seeing might make sense for once trench warfare really settles in terms of not being able to move anything. Given that the trenches don't do a hell of a lot, I mean, they're just sort of like, yeah, they're cheaper unit strength points that don't fire, right? They're like militia in some games or something along those lines, right? Maybe that's necessary for this system to work in the later war, but I'm not seeing the kind of successes that are possible or were possible in the early stages of the war, in this first month or whatever. Yeah, I know. You need, it's Plan 17. I don't care if it fails. It should. That's fine. But there's nothing to really distinguish it, except that I have to do it. There aren't cards that are going to fix this situation. I'm getting something that feels like trench warfare, just sort of inherently out of the system, for a number of reasons. One of which is the absolute lack of... I'm not done with the French yet. Still got the possible counterattack here. I'm not seeing the possibility for the kinds of breakthroughs and whatnot that happened early on, going through Belgium and whatnot. Now, everything is going to be fucking skewed because I've managed to pull up a bunch of forces there. But even once they got past the Belgians, and started hitting the real lines, there was still a possibility to push units around and to move them. In a way, the warfare was still mobile enough before the trenches really dug in. And I just don't feel like the system handles that. It should maybe start, with a global start after the entrenchment's already happened. Of course, the most interesting part of the war to me is actually those opening stages. And this is where... you have to make trenches effective, and where Le Grand Guerre having different kinds of combat rules for different periods of the war actually really makes sense. The difference between the mobile and the trench stage is significant. I don't remember all the specifics about it, but I think the full sort of battle setup that you do didn't happen during the mobile set. It doesn't happen during the mobile setup of that game. It's not until you get to the trench war where you have the bombardments, the pre-fire, and all that. But also, the main limitation is the supplies just aren't there to actually clear a hex. Comes the great question of, do I want to active defense this? I think the fact that these artillery were used, they're not allowed to fire anymore. Again, the rules aren't ironclad and clear enough to make that obvious. They seem to say different things, but it does seem to indicate that I can't use them in defense, and that they can only be used once, and that seems to be one hex, like they were used for the offensive. They can't be used in defense now. Of course, that also means that I can't use these to exploit. I do have this, though, if I want to. Actually, this is defensive. Yeah, so we're actually on active defense. I can counterattack. This has to activate units. The player is not required to activate headquarters to move units, though the player must use supplies. Any units within range of the captured hex may participate in an active defense. I think that may include activated units, and it doesn't affect activation. As it is, the exploitation already allows you to basically move double your movement. And as long as you're landing in combat again. This thing, I mean, not only is it... I'm thinking about giving up. I really am. Like, I just feel like this game is just going to be not only, incredibly tedious and painful, but also just not worth the not providing any historical insight and just really a pile of stinking crap when it comes down to it. You know, maybe I'm misinterpreting the rules. Maybe there's some way to see these, but damn, man. I mean, at some point or another, you know, when you're facing something like this, you say, it just ain't worth it. This feels very early to be saying that. But it also feels very obvious that it is just not a workable system the way I'm comprehending it at all. Not workable in terms of the effort involved, which isn't horrible. I could get used to the effort. Not workable in terms of any kind of accuracy it's providing. And maybe it gets better when I get into the trench warfare, but right now, it's just like, but ideas. So, I mean, in the trench warfare, the reason why the exploitation isn't that big a deal is because I won't be exploiting 8 hexes. But I'm thinking, what if the Germans break through this line? They'll get an exploit that they can hit something up here where they couldn't have reached. But the only reason that they're, I don't know, you know, I mean, I wouldn't be able to exploit through here, but I'd be able to exploit around the edges and whatnot. But if the French left units behind the lines, I could conceivably get more movement than I'd be allowed to do in free movement or anything else at very little cost. Now, let's take a look at what it says in active defense. Yeah, again, the movement's free, which makes sense, because I have to do it into combat. I mean, I'm going to do it. What the hell? It feels like I'm losing very little to gain that hex back. A huge fucking force in. Somebody went through this hex so that I own that, so that I can retreat into that. This does not activate my units. I don't think I'm allowed to fire artillery into this, and I got to pay a whole bunch of supplies to go in there. The part is I crossed a river into rough terrain. The rough terrain gives the defenders a bonus. I spent my supplies. The river makes the defender fire first and puts a -1 on my attacking land units, which is problematic, but that's part of why I needed to send so many units in. The effect was basically a hit on each. Now, all those terrain effects are still in application. I think I'm going to keep fighting for this because this breaches my river line. It just feels like it's my only way to push forward on my offenses with the Germans. Now, this wouldn't happen naturally because the Germans would have only taken 1 pulse on this map. And although the Germans took another loss, the Belgian English force took 3, one of which was directed. I put that against the English. I'm making it so that the defender has to choose their losses first. That's not specified. I think that the Entente is going to pull out here because this is not a good situation. Unfortunately, my defensive line kind of falls apart at this point. So if I fall back to here, this captured marker is going to go away, but we do get one of these. And by my interpretation of what the rules may be attempting to say, very poorly, the only real effect of this hex is now worth a point, but the Germans don't get it for taking that. Now I have to pull the Germans back. They're not activated for this. And the Allies are in kind of a bad position because of this, especially since the Germans get another activation. Because the active defense was successful, there's no room for any exploitation. We do go on back to the German attempts to go here. This may be the candidate that wins worst World War I Grand Strategic. I had been saying Empires and Alliances won that. Well, I had hopes for this one. Of course, I still have a couple more to go. You have Fatal Alliances, which I think is going to be okay. I don't think it's going to be anything fantastic. And I have Death in the Trenches to still go, which I am not going to like. I know that because I know what the combat system is there. I want to say it's Ben Madison, but I'm not sure if that's correct. It's the one where you get to choose how many dice to roll. And if you roll too high, you do no damage, which it just doesn't work for me. I'll probably explain why when I hit it. But this is feeling less historically accurate than the Empires and Alliances did. And way too painful to play. Now, we're going to come back. This video is going to be a long one, and all I'm going to get through is the first 2 weeks of August. But the Germans are going to get to do their offensives. This is just a kludge to try to make up for what I fucked up. Yeah. So I thought you could counterattack back and forth. I just looked that up and made sure that that's not the case. I get one symbolic advantage on this, and it probably isn't going to count because I'm probably going to sweep the Entente out of the way, and then that hex is just not going to be a symbolic bonus for anyone. The Germans don't get it because they just created it. All right, let's break, and maybe for the night. I don't know if I have the stomach to come back up here. After a failed attempt to go to sleep, and this is one of the biggest things that gets in my way in life, is my tendency to go nocturnal. I think to avoid having to do anything. You know, I get up in an hour at a late hour. Now, I haven't been even doing any yard work, whatever. But, and I'm getting up early enough I could do some yard work. There's no question about that. But I'm just like, I just want to laze around. It's been like a week since I did anything. Anyway, we're back here. We're going to do the German offensive turn as if it was the start of the whole thing. But we'll take into account the fact that I did activate 2 of these headquarters, but I have a whole bunch of units under, no, 1 of these headquarters, under the 2nd Army that can still conduct. Now, Germany's not under any requirement to do a big push, and it might be hard to do. Just because there's no front line really established up where they want their attack to be the greatest. I looked at the big push rules. They'll be able to do one by the end of the year, I guess, or 2 is what they're required to do. There are a lot of extra turns in this year because of the August and September turns, months. But I did start to concern myself because I looked over here and I see Britain has 2 spaces for one. I had to look up the rules for it. The big push for Britain is in conjunction with France. Between the 2 of them, they have to make 2 big pushes. The way it's worded is kind of weird. I think if they combine to do a big push, they don't both get credit for it because that would require they only have to do 1 between them. But anyway, that's what's going on there, I guess. Is that because I was very worried because I couldn't think of something that really qualified that they did in 14 to try to regain ground. And the French don't either, but they have the Plan 17 that they have to do, which qualifies, and it actually covers for both of them, so that's cool. Russia is, of course, going to do offensives. Austria has to do them. I think they only have to do one, right? Russia, Italy, and Austria each have to do one, yeah. Austria has to do one, but they can get theirs on the Serbs because they're really not in a position to conduct a real lasting offensive against the Russians. All right, so let me start figuring out what I want to do with the Germans. What do I want to do with the Germans? Second Army is definitely going to try to break through this and get as far as they can. Oh, yeah, so notably, we haven't got, we're in this section still, the offensive. So we haven't gotten to the movement where you can fill in and pull up units and whatnot. Okay. Oh, God, that's just hard. So the impression that, like, I don't know. I'm just looking at the activated markers and I'm like, what do I really want to do with these? Because every headquarters is going to get a fucking activated marker. That doesn't tell what they're trying to do. And then it's during the initial combat, I guess. I don't really know because this doesn't really declare artillery and naval support. Yeah, so I guess the declaration of attacks happens in with that. Okay. So I guess I can kind of pulse them. One problem here, my line here across the river, that's still a line across the river. And I may count on exploitation to take these out. Now, units that I use are the exact same ones that are allowed to exploit, which feels weird again. I decided to actually go with one of my big pushes here coming through Luxembourg. This is actually going into Belgium, but whatever. So that's 5 more German morale. And it gets one of my 2 requireds. And I don't have to do them in August, but it seems like a good time to do it while the weather's good. Concentrating here. Over here, we're going to do attritions. I'm going to start out with the easy stuff. The attritions first, then jump up here, and then do the big push. Both headquarters are involved in it, but I only marked one because it's only a single big push, and I don't want to confuse things. Normally, there's a bit of a problem that's showing up here, but normally, headquarters that haven't been used yet are allowed to fire in defensive acts. But anything that's been activated, and all the Allied ones have been activated, are not allowed to participate in a defense. I don't even know if they're allowed to fire back in the counter battery fire, which I have to look up. But what that kind of means is, if you're going to be on the defensive on a turn, if you go second in a turn, then you're golden. Whatever the other guy throws at you, you have free defenses for, and then you're able to use those units again and activate them. But if you went first, you have pretty much negated your capability to defend against the opponent. So you might want, if you're going first, not to conduct an attrition offensive, just so that you have the capability to fire your artillery. The way it's stated here, defending artillery fire, an artillery duel takes place in the second round if a defending headquarters within range is designated to participate. I think they're precluded from doing that because they can't fire in defense if they're activated. Minimal attrition fires, I only fired 1 supply off on each, did nothing. Now up there. crossing the river is a good time to fire a 3-round blast in, because it's the most likely time to reduce. Remember, these guys get a free fire coming across the river, so I'm forcing them back a little bit, I hope. This round of combat, absolutely nothing hit. I'm really low on supplies here. I don't know if I can bust my way through effectively. I've battered these guys pretty hard, but in order to conduct the offensive that I have planned here, I have to pull a couple of units out. In looking over this initial sequence here, the declaration of individuals, you declare the attacks that will take place, you activate the headquarters, the defender declares artillery and air support, put the big push in, but then you hit initiate combat, which is when the actual supplies are deducted. I don't know what to do if that's the actual thing, because I would like to win this fight, but I don't have supplies to commit to this fight. I have one extra supply, but beyond what I need, because I was kind of stupid. But now if I look here, doesn't talk about it in the declaration. I'm just making sure. See, here it says supply must be deducted from the activated headquarters in order to conduct the offensive. I think what I'm stuck doing is pulling 3 more units out. No, I can't break the Belgian unit. Okay, so I pull out in another failure. Going pating outside from the rain, and I don't know what that is, but it worries me that, like, maybe I positioned my shovel where it's getting wet or something. Okay, so now we're on the final attack here. This is across the river again. There's no way I'm going to break through with this, but I have to make the attack as declared. I have no artillery that I can commit to it. See, the problem is these guys are used. Well, wait. This guy is used. And I don't have another army that I can commit because they've all been declared to other things. That big push is going to be a nightmare. I honestly think they're almost impossible to accomplish. Like, I don't know. And again, that might be perfectly fine in the trench warfare period, but in early in August and September, they should be possible. Got a very low chance of getting exploitation. Of course, exploitation doesn't help me. I have no supplies, so maybe I don't care. Maybe I don't care. Because I could, what I was thinking of doing was, again, spending 1 point to get this guy to go forward. It doesn't even buy me a way to move in using normal movement with anybody who wasn't activated. I see a problem with everything here. Another one of many, which is that, let's say I did get the exploitation. There's no way for me to tell which units were part of the first army activation. Now, this may be some of this may be the fault of the way I pulse things, because honestly, things would not have worked out this way otherwise. And I've got like 2 armies cooperating together. These guys are both in the same big push, so they're going to be able to use their supplies together to support it. But yeah, I think I have to get out of that hex too. A similar problem that I had with empires and alliances or whatever, which is everybody's got these fucking activations and they're all right jammed up against each other, where there's a little bit of thickness where both sides maybe conducted actions against, near each other, and there could be some thickness to the units that were used. It's hard to tell who's what. The trenches were the issue in that game. In this game, I got the trenches below because they don't really, the trenches and fortifications below because they really don't matter. I think you may be able to use trenches and forts in the same space as in this one. I don't remember. I know there's a prohibition in Empires and Alliances, and and I have a vague thought that there is in this too, but like now I'm thinking, oh, maybe not. Right then, on to the mass. Oh boy. One of my German units moved and took its fort with it. Now I gotta figure out where that fort was supposed to be. Requirement that you continue your offensive more than one turn. The big push or whatever. So in order to get two of them, you could stop one and I think even start it again. I'll get you your morale back, whatever. Right now, I'd love to take this hex. I could probably take it right here. I could probably take it, except I need the supplies for all these guys to attack. I'm not sure I have it. Another round, using less and less troops each time. I didn't get any hits this time, I'm pulling out. After this hex here, no artillery going in there. Just, probably just fighting one round. Damage over here, but I'm worried that my supplies are low. Yeah, I could run down these two armies completely, but I may need their supplies to continue the attack through Belgium. I'm really not sure. I don't have a really good feel on how much excess I have, but I got to make it through, you know. Yeah, I had a turn that I basically skipped. I got to make it through 2 more turns after this one before I get any additional supplies. I kind of feel like I don't want to buy reinforcements. I just want to buy fucking supply points. Let me do something, you know. I don't know. I really don't know. Anyway, one more attack, and then we are ready to go into, well, if there's any exploit. Oh, wait. We didn't capture anything. Okay. I was going to say, got to worry about active defense after these initial combats are all done. But, yeah, if I can't take a hex, none of that stuff gets played. Points. I would not want to play this game without tweezers. I'm having enough trouble when I do use them, but without, it's really horrible. The chance of bumping things over is just so high. But another is I can't do what I like to do and walk away from the game for a little bit. Hey, what's going on here? Why is there like a hole in the French line? That's interesting. I better go investigate that. So legitimately here, I think the French, when they withdrew from battles from the big push over here, ended up not filling one of the spaces that they were supposed to. Is this horrible? It's not good, but given that the Germans didn't launch an offensive down here, hey, I got an army I didn't even use. How about that? That's part of why it didn't get... Oh, well. I'm making mistakes left and right. It's hard to distinguish where the armies are. If you keep them behind the front line, it's a little easier. This guy being right in the front, even though he's kind of a larger stack than he should be. They just didn't notice him. It's going to happen. This kind of shit does not happen in La Grande Guerre. The armies are the only things on the map. One thing, don't attack with units that are smaller. You're wasting supplies on them. They're fine for defense, whatever. They can take hits and everything. But on the offensives, you want the biggest units you can have. And that's the one advantage the Germans have, is their units start out bigger. So right at the beginning of the game, they're going to be big. But also, if you have to throw units into the front line, with your replacements and whatnot, you're basically building them at its starting value and putting them back in. those big German units cost a lot to build. And we have my missing counter situation here. It's fine on the other side. Looked for it a little bit more tonight. Well, now I got to figure out where I was attacking. Crap. I'm guessing it's this hex, but I'm not sure. I'll be able to figure it out. Artillery bombardment, and I think we have a success. I think the French want to get out of there. That means that I'm going to have an exploit capability, if I want to pay for it. But what's interesting about that is I could drive that down in this direction or something. The French also lost a division. I got a lucky roll, I guess, which ended up meaning now both they and the Brits have failed on their monthly goal, which will cost them some national morale. I have the Germans in a success. I took it a hex early on. I took a city. That's why. Okay. Yeah, this is still the turn where I took Liege or whatever. Often the case, I got a bunch of units. I got to throw them back here under activated markers, obviously. And then the French get their opportunity to try to retake the hex if they want it. Oh boy. I have to put a captured marker on Liege. Got to do that. I put a captured marker here. It doesn't need one, but it helps me kind of understand if the French want to retake it. The problem is if I don't retake it, the exploitation, which can be all the units I used, it's not going to be that many, can attack this one unit here, putting me close to Sedan, etc. I think the French need to try to retake this hex, actually. This is a bad situation because, you know, they are short on supplies too across the front. And are going to have to devote lots of supplies down to the big pushes that they're making. So, you know, but I feel like I have to take the hex, and that will give it another victory point, which isn't good, but yeah. Problem I'm going to have, I'm going to be putting some activated and some not activated units in there. I don't know if that even matters, because we've completed, both of us, our attacks on the front. But if we had multiple offensives that we could use, it could conceivably cause an issue. I don't feel like they can hold the hex at these odds, so they're going to fall back. That's going to generate another one of these things. And it's going to stop their exploitation. But the French may be weakened in many places that are interesting because of this. Oh, that is the end of the offensive phases. Right. It means they go to movement phase. The Germans get the first opportunity to move. I don't think there are any gaps that I can exploit. It's free movement though. Well, I can shift up here. I can take that hex. Game has an index in the back, but what I need to find right now is the zone of control, because what I'm not sure is, can I exploit further? Generally, in a World War I game, there's some capability to kind of sneak a hex or something like that, in quite a few of them. So I'm curious about whether I can do that. Like, can I move from this zone to this zone? And I don't recall that. And so I'm looking through this, and there's no easy way to find it. What I want is an actual index that's alphabetized or whatever, but this is instead a table of contents in the back of the book for some reason. Yes, I can. Land units, including supply, may not make 2 consecutive moves into hexes covered by enemy zone of control, unless it's into an enemy-controlled hex, i.e. an attack. So I can take advantage of that oops, but I can also take advantage of moving into this space as well. I can't, because they moved into zones. So that space is open. But this one, which was just a complete fuck up, I can slip into. Here, this damn Belgian unit, a couple of them actually, are keeping me from crossing the river still. I can't use this unit because it's been activated. I could use something from back here, maybe, I don't know, but it can't make its way through. And now comes the ugly thing. The Entente can push up into covering the river line better. It's not as good a river line as the Dial in some ways, but it buys me a lot of space and keeps Belgium from collapsing the way it historically did. Again, I don't think any of this would be likely to happen if the French and Brits were not allowed to enter Belgium on the first turn. That they're basically entering at the same time the Germans cross the border, and that seems very wrong. You can kind of see what the board looks like without all the stupid activations on there. Nice solid line up here, right up, you know, not at the border of Belgium, but pretty damn close. Oh wow, we could have gone and taken Maastricht. Oh no, that's Dutch. Okay. I wish that was just gray, since it's not allowed, and this, you know, without troops or whatever, how would you, I don't know, just do it like Switzerland in so many games. Honestly, yeah, I guess this is Switzerland up here, but that's not going to get in the way in the same way that the Netherlands does. I already took the 3 points and exchanged them from Belgium to Germany. We have 2 failures here. Britain and France failed. Germany gets reset because they have to take to gain. But these go down. I had to make sure that loss of divisions didn't cost points just because that seemed like it would make sense. They don't. It causes you to fail your goals possibly, but it's not a big deal. And that is going to put us all the way over here into the 3rd week, and we are done for a while for tonight. This is this is incredibly painful, both mechanically and also because of the rules themselves just not being very good. But also, I don't feel like they took everything into account that they could or should have properly. So, like, you know, things like the Entente moving into Belgium in force looks like a good move to me. And then also that the game just doesn't appear to create results that are historically reasonable outside of that. Just putting aside my fuck-ups, historically reasonable enough in the mobile phase of the war. I mean, I don't know. The cost in supply of conducting an offensive is just so high. And I'm like looking at, geez, I don't know if it makes sense to rebuild units if those are points that I could get supplies out of instead. And I'm not sure on which side. Like, on the offense, I really want points. I really want supply points so that I can conduct the offensives that I need to. On the defensive side, troops are still useful, right? Because they don't cost you any supplies to use. Which feels weird, but whatever. And I guess that's it. I'm going to send this up. I don't know if I'm going to ever actually play the full game. But we're going to try to push on a little further with this failure. And if if my spirits don't lift in regard to this whole thing, it was just a waste to set all this up, a waste to glue all those counters together. I mean, part of it is just, I can see this game is not going to replace Le Grand Guerre. And more than that, like, it just has no place that I can see. Again, this may be the worst World War I game that I've seen. For a combination of factors. There are other ones that are equally ahistorical, perhaps. But, yeah, this tedious and ahistorical. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to remember because I just played the Empires and Alliances, and I felt like that was both ahistorical and too mechanically annoying. This one just feels like it's certainly worse in the mechanical annoyance factor, and maybe in the historicity too. But it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell because I know I'm not using the system, as a skilled player in any sense of the word. But when there's gaps like the Belgium thing, it's like, yeah, I can fix that, and then maybe it becomes an okay game. What the real problem is I don't see how trench warfare is going to change the situation too much. You end up spending supply points, I think it is, to dig in. And those are just extra hit points to be lost. And they work kind of like fortresses do, and just don't seem... Like, the fortresses feel too weak, too, because they're not giving me any additional artillery capability or anything, which they really should have. They really should have more gunpowder towards their defense. Certainly, Le Grand Guerre does that, and you can dismantle the fortresses if you need additional artillery. The French... Actually, both sides kind of do that to some extent. I think it's the French that are the only ones that are allowed to. The reconnaissance planes not being terribly valuable. It's just so many little things that I'm just like, oh, what the fuck. Oh, I got this guy. I think I want to move him. I see no reason for him to be here. Nope, this isn't part of the Western Front. I don't know. Can I use it? I'll make him stay there for now until I don't know. Yeah. It's just kind of at nightmare level right now. All right, up we go.